Hey folks, welcome back to Honey Money SG. In this episode, let's talk about a very popular question that some of you may have. Why do people actually hate the CPF? You know, when I was much younger and much more naive compared to now, I also am one of the party that hates the CPF. And there are actually three reasons that I want to discuss in this video. And let's start with the first reason being that it takes away 20% of your income. Now, this is probably the most straightforward reason, right? Because it's like every month when you receive an income from your employer, example, you receive like $3,000, then you have to deduct like 20% to contribute to your CPF. And 20% of $3,000 is actually $600. If you were a fresh grad receiving $3,000 as a monthly salary, $600 is indeed a lot, right? Considering that you were a student previously and you now have your income deducted by $600. But in actual sense, it's not like the $600 is really taken away from you. It is just like a deferred income, you see. It's put away in a savings account called the CPF. Or maybe I should call it a retirement account, not a savings account. Because I truly understand how you feel, because when I was a fresh grad, taking away 20% of that income, it really hurts. You are still like in your initial years of wealth building. You just started out with a really low income and you don't really have much savings because you were still a student. And now you think that the government is really taking away a huge chunk of money from you at a stage where you most likely need the most money, because you're probably in the age of 25 for males and you're starting to think of building a family. When you are building a family, you definitely need a home, a own property for own stay. And you know, in Singapore, housing prices are so expensive. And not only that, you have to take care of your wedding. If you need to have a car, you need to take care of car expenses. And once you purchase your home, you still need money to go and do up renovations to make it a more comfortable living space. So I understand that taking 20%, it really hurts, especially when you are a young bloke having no much money, and now the government is still taking away 20% from you. Now, not only from a personal lifestyle perspective, but if we look at the initial prime years that we had, we are probably looking at doing investing or business, because the ESBI mindset, right? Employee, self-employed, business and investor of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book that you have read. Maybe you have opportunities to take some funds to go and do some investments, or if you're looking at a wonderful opportunity to start a business and you probably need a lot of funds as startup capital. So now you think that the CPF is taking away some of the opportunity that it can be used better either for your investments or your business, and you felt really unhappy about it. But you know, other than taking away 20% to put in a CPF account, do you know that your employer also has to pay you 17% on top of your monthly salary? And that is not even on monthly salary. Even on your annual bonus, your performance bonus and your AWS all are entitled to 17% additional employer contribution. So when employers are looking at the employee cost, they actually have to take like 100% plus 17%, because the 17% is from the employer contribution. So when you are taking a monthly salary of $3,000, you have to add 17% to it in order to make it a fair comparison. And assuming that there are no CPF contribution laws, that means that you are losing the 17% contributed by your employer, right? So you can think of it like, compared to a foreigner who doesn't have CPF, you are actually drawing 17% higher, just that it is all locked up in the CPF account instead of paying out in cash for you. But of course, I can hear some of your comments already, because for some of the workplaces, the employers actually pay the 17% of employer contribution back to the foreigner, which causes even more unhappiness, right? Because the same level of the staff, the foreigners are actually paid more in cash. But that's not really the topic that I want to discuss today. But at least you can know that your CPF contributions are not subjected to tax, while your foreigner colleague actually has to take all these extra contributions taxable. So you are paying a much lesser tax because yours are CPF contributions and theirs is pure income. Okay, let's move on to the second reason, right? And that is really because the waiting time is too long for utilization of the CPF funds. Now, according to the CPF rules, you can only withdraw your CPF funds when you reach the age of 55. For those who have not reached your full retirement sum, you can withdraw like $5,000. And for those who have reached above the full retirement sum, you can withdraw any amounts above the full retirement sum, or minimally $5,000. So that is the rule as of now. And for a young adult, assuming you're age 25 fresh grad, that is 30 years away from when you can start seeing your funds to be used. I don't know about you, but I hope that we can all agree that 30 years is actually a very long period of time, and circumstances can change in this 30 years, whether you start a family or you have new business ventures, or you might be in situations like emergencies where you really need a huge pile of money to help you tide over a very difficult or challenging event. So to those young people, locking up your money in CPF is not like the best idea, right? Because you may be in a period or event where you really cannot access to such money, and then you felt really helpless because the government isn't helping you either, because that's how the CPF rules are. You can't really take out the money to go and tide over your business or maybe pay your medical bills just because you are in an emergency. But I think fundamentally, let's not forget that CPF is primarily a retirement savings account and not like a bank interest account, right? The high yield savings account. Because it's not like a bank where you can really withdraw money when you want it and then put in money back when you have earned enough of it. And you know, retirement means that you need to use these funds for your old age, because maybe at that point in time, you are no longer working, you do not have any alternative income sources, and that's when your retirement savings, retirement funds, or CPF Life will help you cover the daily expenses that we really need. Also, don't forget that you can also use your CPF ordinary account to go and do things like paying for your property, or even invest your CPF OA funds above the 20k threshold, which I think is a lot more flexible compared to other kind of pension schemes or social security funds in the other countries. So I think it's really a matter of perspective, right? You should always see your CPF as a form of forced savings account or retirement account that you do not intend to touch it in the short term, because I know for some of you, you'll always talk about investing is for the long term, and then you'll look at short term market fluctuations and say that I'm in it for the long term. I'm in it for the long term, but you don't see your CPF as the long term. So it's quite ironic, right? Here you are talking about investing for the long term, and then CPF is for the long term, but you don't recognize it. But I can't say that anyone is really wrong. It's more like your perspective towards it. And this is my perspective towards CPF, right? It's a forced savings thing. Whether you like it or not, it's going to stay. The rules are there. It's just how you play along the rules. And it's not like anybody have a choice. So why not make hay while the sun shines and don't really blame everyone except yourself? Hey, have you heard about it? Huh? Heard what? I got $100 worth of Apple shares for free. Are you sure or not? How did you even get it? Well, I started using the Weibo app and deposited $2,000 and make 6 buy-in trades. If you don't believe me, you can take a look at my Weibo app right here, showing you $100 worth of Apple shares. Wow, is that really such a good thing for free? Can you teach me how to do it? So you can start by using my Weibo referral link down below, sign up and deposit the first deposit of $2,000 in Singapore dollars and make 6 buy-in trades so that you can qualify for $120 worth of Microsoft shares. Weibo also gives you 0 commission fees and platform fees for all stocks, ETFs and options in the US market. So make sure you sign up for a Weibo account using my link before the expiry date. And with that, let's get back to the video. Let's move on to the final reason that why people actually hate CPF, and that is because of the complicated terms that are used in the CPF. By terms, I do not only mean the difficult acronyms, but also the rules and the laws surrounding the CPF. Just to name a few of the acronyms in CPF, you have like OA, SA, MA, RA, BHF, FRS, ERS, and even more. These are just some of those that I thought above from my head. And then if you want to study the different tier of interest, you have the OA at 2.5%, SA at 4%, MA at 4%. But that's just the basic level of interest understanding, you know, because your first 60,000 actually earn an additional 1%, and the cap is at $20,000 of the OA. And when you think that's about it, right, that's only for those age 55 below for the first 60k. If you are 55 and above, for your first 30k, you actually get additional 2%. And then for your next 30k, you get an additional 1%. So that's like a tier higher than those below age 55. And at the same time, you need to understand that all these are capped at $20,000 in your OA. So what is my point of talking about all these different variable interest rates? My point is, it's already difficult enough to understand mathematics. And now, if you want to put mathematics in CPF interest rate calculation, unless you are really clear of the rules, the calculation, and how all the formula works, then I guess it's very difficult for an average person to go and understand how the CPF interest rate is actually calculated. And from my experience, when people don't kind of understand the concept or a theory, they tend to fear it, they are afraid of it, and that's why they don't learn about it or understand it or take the effort to really go and understand what is behind all these numbers. Enough about the numbers, right? Let's talk about the goalposts, because I know I read a lot of online forums and Facebook pages talking about CPF is always shifting the goalposts. Why is this year's FRS 192,000 and then next year it may be increased to 196 or 197,000, and the basic healthcare sum, right? Last year it was 63,000, this year is 66,000. Next year will be what, 69,000 probably? Why is there a need to keep increasing the numbers? Because it's becoming like a shifting goalpost that people can no longer hit. They thought that by hitting this year's number, they are set for life, but next year the number increase again. So I mentioned a lot before, it's all about inflation. But I shall not dwell too much into it because that's not the purpose of this video. It's more like why people are really afraid of it or really steer clear of it, do not understand it. Because they think that by the time they understand this number, then the next year the number may increase again. Then they may need to study and learn again. And that's just on the number side, right? I have not even talked about the flowchart side. When you have maxed your basic healthcare sum, $66,000, where do your funds flow to? Do they flow in the OA or SA? Actually, the answer is both. Just to give a quick overview, right? If your special account is not at the FRS 192,000, your Medisave account contributions will continue to flow to the SA. Whereas if your SA is maxed at FRS 192,000, then your Medisave contributions will flow to the OA. So you see there's different treatment for different funds at different stage of life at different cap limits, which is really complicated for someone who is starting to learn CPF. And that's already considered quite easy already based on the flowchart. I haven't even talked about the most complicated one, which is reserve funds versus non-reserve funds. Because when I do make CPF content videos like that, there are actually like experts who really understand the policy more than I do. And just to put it simply, your retirement sum top-up funds to the special accounts, they are actually reserve funds. Whereas for those that are voluntary contributions to your Medisave account or your 3 accounts, those are non-reserve funds that can be invested. So does all these terms and conditions sounds really complicated enough? Probably that's why the reason you really hate CPF, right? Because for someone like me, it's already complicated enough to learn all these things. What about an average person who don't even have a basic understanding of CPF? So my point here is CPF is really a difficult concept. While I try to help you understand and educate you guys through my YouTube channel, there may be some problems that I may not really understand. And it's fine that people really come and correct me on my channel because I may not really be the best in expressing myself and my ideas through this platform. But maybe you folks can also comment, why do people actually hate the CPF, or why do you actually hate the CPF? I would love to hear what you have to say, and also you can watch my other CPF videos in my CPF and early retirement playlist because I talk about all these complicated CPF concepts as well as my own CPF strategies that you can look at and adapt. With that, thank you for watching. My name is Christopher. This is Honey Money SG, steering young adults to financial independence.